Okay, here we are, and good evening and good afternoon, everyone, according to your timing. If you are following live, the 8th episode of a new European Bauhaus, a series of bilateral meetings that Triennale Milano is organizing in collaboration with the cultural European representations in Milan and Rome. I'm Marco Sammicheli, and I'm the International Relations Chief Officer of Triennale Milano. And I'm happy to welcome you at the 8th episode of this series. We started, of course, with Germany, and then our journey continued with France, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Czech Republic, Finland, and now we are here with the Danish guest. All these events are co-hosted in collaboration with the cultural representation, as I was saying just 1 second ago, and this time we are working in collaboration with the Danish Embassy in Rome. But before leaving the floor to our co-host, which is Vanessa Lista, Senior Trade Advisor of Creative Industries at the Embassy of Denmark in Rome, I'd like to introduce very briefly what a new European Bauhaus meeting and digital activity is inside the Upside Down digital program of Triennale Milano. Since its foundation, Triennale Milano has hosted the research and the languages of the international creative community. And since 1933, it has been part of the BIE, the Bureau International des Expositions, in Paris, and every 3 years it organizes an international exhibition, which with a system of national pavilions presents the most relevant innovations in the fields of architecture, urban planning, design, and new media. In an attempt to pursue this target, Triennale Milano listened to the message of the European Commission that in October 2020 launched the project of a new European Bauhaus, a movement of thought, a platform, a call to participation that aims to involve cultural institutions, universities, associations, and the widest possible pool of citizens. Triennale Milano has decided to create this series of digital conferences. And here we are inviting curators, designers, scholars, museum directors, and profiles that can think about the theme proposed by the European Commission and are here to share ideas, but also comments, critiques, proposals, and practices in a very delicate moment, not only for the European history, but globally, not only because of the pandemic, but because we need to rethink the cultural dynamics, the exhibitions, and the value creation in any processes of our society. I will now pass the mic from Milan to Rome to Vanessa in order to introduce and greet our guests that they are live from Copenhagen. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone. Well, we have selected for you, I think, a very diverse and interesting panel today, and we will start with Kent Martinussen, who is the CEO of the Danish Architecture Center, which is the National Center for Architecture and Urban Planning in Denmark. It's a public-private partnership between the Danish government and the private philanthropic fund Realdania. Kent is also a member of a huge number of national and international committees, juries and boards, among others, of course, the jury panel of the Architecture Biennale of Venezia. And after Kent, we will have Vittoria Casanova, who is a trained designer, an Italian in Copenhagen. And she works as investment manager for the Index project. She's been working on a number of projects, and she played a key role in the establishment of the Design to Improve Life Fund. And then, last but not least, we have Majken Kalhave, who is the executive director of the fairly newly established, actually, Creative Denmark, which is a no-profit public-private partnership, whose role is definitely to focus and create awareness around the narrative of the creative Denmark in the world. So I think we will find it very, very interesting today.
So thank you very much, Vanessa, for the introduction and also for collaborating very tightly with Triennale in order to build this panel. And I would like to start with Kent Martinussen, director of the DAC Center, Danish Architectural Center in Copenhagen. The new European Bauhaus initiative connects the European Green Deal to our living spaces. And it calls on all Europeans to imagine and build together a sustainable and inclusive future that is beautiful not only for our eyes, minds, but also and souls, but also for our living spaces. So I would love to hear from you your perspective and your reaction when you heard about this initiative from the European Commission that, as we are used to say during this initiatives here in Triennale, it is one of the first political act that has design and the legacy of an important school in this political statement. Kent, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting us this afternoon. It's wonderful to be here. So my first reaction, my first reaction was kind of, affirmative that I'm a European. I think it's wonderful to be a European and to be a member of the European community. And an initiative like this really, to me, confirms that Europe has a future. It has a long history, but it has a future, being part of solving some of the largest challenges of our planet. So that was my first reaction. And of course, as an architect, trained myself as an architect, it's wonderful to see how the metaphor or the analogy of the Bauhaus is revived once again, and we are working on it. And I'll come back to that when I do my presentation.
Yeah, please. So thank you, and let's start the presentation.
So to all of you, welcome to Copenhagen. Here you see a relatively new building, the Blocks building on the harbor front of Copenhagen, where both all three of today's speakers actually are having their daily work, which is called Blocks, and that was opened in 2018. And if you move on to the next slide, I should say that it was designed by OMA, which I'm sure you all know. So the DAC, just shortly, the court now, please move back. Whoopsie. Yeah, the short story of DAC is that architecture and design creates the framework for how we live our lives and live together. So it is our job as an international architecture center and a cultural attraction to share and to debate knowledge about sustainable development of our physical framework for life through exhibitions, tours, talks, events, learning, and networking. So that's what we are doing on a daily basis. Just next, thank you. Yeah, and here you just have some illustrations, some slides showing all the activities we have. In 2019, we had 200,000 visitors. Next, please. Well, let me just spend my time at least talking, saying that that in the Blocks building designed by OMA, we have not only DAC, which is in the middle, but also the Blocks Hub, where Majken and Vittoria are working on a daily basis. Many different agents working on architecture, design, built environments, smart cities, but also on fashion, and it kind of is an underlying stream of everything we do, that it has to do with sustainability, which has to do with the fact that we are all in some way connected to a public relevance, and thereby being it professional or being it more to the cultural audience, and thereby are aligned with the national policy of Denmark. And DAC, besides from operating from Blocks and inviting an audience in, we are also the commissioner of the Danish Pavilion in the Biennale of Architecture in Venice. So we every second year present Danish architecture, and I'm sure the Italian audience here tonight is totally aware of how that works. So I won't go into that, but we have been quite pushed by the COVID-19, as you have all in Europe, and the Biennale, as you know, has now been been pushed like 2 times. We still hope to be able to open in a good month from now. And if I should, I'll just move on talking without slides and hope this is meaningful enough, saying that we here at Blocks, we decided back in October month, when the idea of the new European Bauhaus came out and was formulated briefly by van der Leyen, we decided to immediately to gather major agents such as the Danish Industrial Association and others, the Architectural Association, Designers Association, and create a first larger meeting where we were like 40, 50 people trying to consider what did the new European Bauhaus mean at all to us, just having these few little area ideas about what it could be. So we actually have had now since November 3 larger meetings and a lot of in-between workshops of different key persons, key institutions, and key agents. And we are right now moving into the phase where we think we will be able, before summer, to create some more thorough idea about what will be the Danish and maybe connected to other countries, most likely actually, the Danish idea or angle towards bidding on the tender or the call, which will come out in the fall. But let me just reassume my slide series here short, saying that we moved into to Blocks in 2018. As you can see here, where you have the timeline and our visitors, we had great expectations. And of course, we now have a COVID impact. But as some of you may know, Copenhagen will be announced as the World Capital of Architecture in 2023, endorsed by UNESCO and the United International Architects Association. So we hope to see you all in 23, where we also hope that we are not past, but at least have learned to live with COVID. Just take next, please. Let's see if it works. So here, just something about what I said. A lot of organization has been working together for the last 4 or 5 months on creating a common idea about how we could bring something to the table in relation to the new European Bauhaus. Just take next. And as I also told you, we are where we think we can within the next 3-4 months create a vision and a shared story and a concept catalog, which will be part of really answering the call that will come out in September. Of course, I cannot share all the ideas. There are many when you bring architects, designers, educators, contractors, engineers, and so forth together. But what I have decided to do today, by the invitation of Marco, I believe, is to say a personal idea that I have brought to the table, that would be one idea to think about for the new European Bauhaus. Let's just take next. And you can say when you read and you understand how the how the Bauhaus has new Bauhaus has formulated its ideas, it's really wonderful because it really brings to the table and to the broader community of Europe an idea that we all know we are having a burning platform, but how should we address it? Because there are so many things that we could move into. So we could move into energy efficiency. Here you see an image of Cadiz in Spain, where painting the roofs white creates quite an impact when it comes to CO2 emission. Take next. In New York, they have put harsh fines on not regulating your buildings according to a lower CO2 emission. And I'll come back to that because I think that's really a core problem. Take the next. And of course, we have rising water level from the ocean. And that doesn't only go for Florida. You can say, well, they asked for it, but it goes for the entire world. So what do we do about that? It goes for many parts of Denmark, which is, as you know, a country totally surrounded by the ocean. Take next. And the urban typologies are really an interesting thing when it comes to a new national Bauhaus, because when you look at the way we have developed different cities in Europe, there's a big difference on how good they perform. So Barcelona really performs quite well compared to, for instance, US cities, because they have the density, but they also have the easy living quality of biking around in the city. Take next. But of course, you could also focus on energy as such. Where would we get our energy from? Should it be from Russia? Should it be from windmills? Or maybe, as I believe more personally, from solar power? This is not European, doesn't matter to me, but solar power may be the big answer when we look into the future. I believe so. There are big problems with wind power too. Take next. And here, just to put a pressure on one of the highlighted ideas about battery-driven cars, they also cause problems. Here you see a lithium ponds from Chile. Move on. Next, please. And mobility as such is, of course, a core thing that you could move into. How could we move around in Europe, which has been one of the core values of the European Union in the future of free sharing of work and goods? Probably not like this, should be more collective. So that would also be a thing to work on. And finally, here from a small greeting from Copenhagen, just to show you how we work with the bicycle lanes and bicycle place. This is a project by BIG. I think it will come out later. I just realized in another one. So let me move to a statement as Marco was asking for. If you move next. You have this quite fine formulation by Ursula von der Leyen, who says that the Bauhaus is about matching sustainability with style to bring the European Green Deal closer to people's minds and homes. And I think there is really a big secret hidden there, or potential rather. If you move to the next, one of the things that we know is that people living in households spending 40% or more of their income on housing here in 2018 is growing. And we have in Europe quite an interesting mixture of our housing stock. But what we see is that it becomes more and more demanding for people to uphold a dignified life for their families in a personal home. Take next, please. So here you see that half of the European population live in flats and half the population own their own living housing unit, which is maybe a surprise. At least I think it's interesting to see that detached and semi-detached houses and flat more or less equals, depending on countries, equals half-half. And the fact that we own our own houses is also part of why they become more and more expensive. I'm in for that, but I think it's really interesting to see how can we create in the future a calm political environment where people feel safe, and housing has to do with that. Take next. More important, when it comes to energy and the price of living in your own house or your own flat, here is our burning platform, I think. The building sector is by far the largest single energy consumer in Europe. It is estimated that by 2050, at least 75% of today's building stock will still exist. Of course, we only add 1.5% to the building stock every year, and we should remember that. Speaking as architects, designers, people who are working in the building sector as such, but also institution working with it, we are very often focused on what is brand new, sparkling, spectacular, But the truth is that we only add 1% every year. Therefore, energy renovation is key to shift to a low carbon building stock. Next. And I will do this fast. However, neither the rate nor the depth of current energy renovation lives up to the saving potential. We have a huge saving potential. It's actually immense if we go that way. Next. So there are like 80 million housing units, flats and houses, that needs to be upgraded to near zero energy buildings by 2050. That's a lot. That would sparkle a lot of architects, designers, creative people, artists, and of course the entire industry, including all the hand workers and the skilled workers and whatnot, if we go that way. And I believe we should. Actually, I believe it's mandatory. Even though energy could be cheaper, it will take some decades before that happens. Yeah, next. And interestingly enough, when you look at why does people not want to renovate their apartments, they don't really relate to it. And the architects themselves report high barriers. One of them being that it's difficult to explain the benefits to clients. And if we look to the next, we see here, I won't go into details, but just interestingly enough, if you take the three at the bottom, people answering, why do you not, or why do you energy renovate your apartment or your house? The majority of them answers that it was just by accident. Something went wrong. There was something not functioning, and I had to call for a maintenance man or an architect or an engineer. And I realized that it was really not really upgraded energy-wise. So next. I think there is a primitive learning here that most people only experience design when it breaks down. So they don't think about it. Maybe they don't think about it as much as we do, who work with, present, disseminate, and discuss it every day. But for that reason, it is also so important that the broader majority of people living in Europe become parts of the new European Bauhaus. They need to be part of a new movement where they are actually engaged and empowered to be part of lifting that agenda. So if we take the next, I would argue that we need to make a near zero energy building renovation the hottest stuff for architects, designers, and all the creative industries, which it is not now, I would argue. All architects, 98%, are talking about the new stuff. All magazines, all websites and platforms, maybe not Marco, but generally are talking about the new stuff. I think we should talk about the old stuff. It's what we have, and it's 100% of what we live in. So maybe the new European Bauhaus should be about the new nearly zero European, I can't even say it, nearly zero energy renovation buildings. Thank you. I'm on.
Okay, thank you, Kent, very much for coping also with the technical difficulties at the beginning. We could follow your argumentation and your presentation very well after the first difficult moments. And you are right. You raised questions that they were also part of other conversation before this Danish episode, and probably some of the old stuff that they were not solved by any policies, by any procedures. They need to be re-structured and taken into account by the European Commission and by the different policymakers. And in this sense, the new European Bauhaus has to deal with all important questions that are open. Because if we need to build a platform that deals with experimentation and connection, we also need to do not forget that there's luggage very heavy that you also explain along your charts. Also because you raised topics, and these topics are also connected to everyday issues. So it seems to be something that is for a community that are into architecture, but these science impacts in the everyday life of many people in the entire community. So thank you very much for raising these issues and these questions. And the next guest is also someone that deals every day with the index project on how science and technology, art and culture are part of our everyday life. So I'd like to hear the specific point of view of index project through the voice of Vittoria Casanova, which is an Italian designer based in Copenhagen, but actively working since many years in this important organization. The stage is yours, Vittoria. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco, and thank you for having us. Yeah, I think it's, as other speakers mentioned, we are very aligned with all the values that are in the new European Bauhaus. Most of all, of course, sustainability, inclusivity, and co-creation. And maybe just to give a background about what we do at Index, I would like to share my screen. Okay, can you see it?
We can see it clearly, thank you.
Yes, okay. And maybe I can also put down this one. Yes, okay. Yeah, so as we all know, the world is facing a lot of challenges, especially in the past year. We all experience the pandemic and of course, all the effect that climate change is doing to our world. Sorry. At Index, we believe that design can be a solution, or at least can be an opportunity to rethink a lot of the challenges that we are facing and turning them into an opportunity. We call it design to improve life. This is our motto, and it's basically the sentence that summarizes what we do. So the Index project has been founded in 2002. We are a not-for-profit based in Copenhagen. We are now sharing the same space as Kent and Miha. And yeah, so we are from Denmark, but we work globally with a lot of projects. We teach, we award, and we invest in people that are using design and creativity to change the world. Since we have been active since 2002, we have seen a lot of projects that are somehow improving life of people, but not just people, also the planet, because we are in this human-centric thinking, and we often forgot how actually we have like other habitants in this planet. So going to the award is basically the core of what we do. We have the Index Award every 2 years. This year we will have Index Award in end of September, and we just went with my team in a full week to screen all the nominations. We received more than 2,000 nominations from all over the world, and it's so nice to see a lot of exciting projects that are, of course, tackling a pandemic, but also like a lot of challenges that we are facing. So the award was launched in 2005 and is a biennale. We receive nomination from all over the place, and the nomination is free of charge, and everyone can nominate as long as it's designed to improve life. We have 5 categories and 5 winners. Each winners get a prize of 100,000 euro that is given to the award ceremony. Yeah, so those are the numbers. In total, we receive around 10,000 nominations from more than 95 countries, and we are now in the 9th cycle of Index Award. We have 5 categories: body, home, work, play and learning, and community. Just to give you a few examples to make it a bit more concrete, those are a few of the past winners and finalists of Index Award. As you can see from the first picture on the left, this is Odin. It's a new way of thinking about how a cycle helmet can be. So it's not just, you know, the helmet that we all know, but this is like a collar with an airbag that explodes when there is a crash. Then we have the ocean cleanup, which is like a system to collect the plastic in the ocean using the energy from the waves. Then we have Livestrom, which is a filter to clean the water in area where it's not possible to have running water. Duolingo is like a very well-designed platform to learn a new language for free. What Rewards, a new way to rethink how we address with just 3 words that are basically like dividing all the globe in a grid. Just to maybe focus a little bit more on projects that I think are relevant also for the way that we think about the new European Bauhaus. What I think is interesting is the cross-section of design. So it's not just about design, it's about the process, it's about engineering, it's about science and art. And for example, this project is Zipline, that was a winner in 2017. It's a drone delivery system giving access to blood, healthcare product in places where access to hospital is not so easy. Like they started in Ghana and Rwanda, but now with the pandemic, they basically have requests from all over the world. They are now opening up in Philippines, US, and many other countries where we need basically like access to vaccine or masks and all the equipment that we all know that we need for the COVID-19. Another project that I think is super interesting is from Faber Future. It's a design studio based in London. And it's basically, to me, it's a very good example of design is not just about design. This is about biodesign and how can we use biology and science to basically rethink the way fashion industry is using some methods. For example, this is a project about how can we use a bacteria that produce a pigment to basically save a lot of water when we need to dye clothes, not just water, but all the chemicals that usually are associated in the fashion industry production. So I think it's very relevant in the context of the new European Bauhaus, because it's not just about presenting solution, it's about co-creating together. And I think that was also what I like about this proposal, that it's more like a call to action, like, okay, let's see what are the solutions that are out there and how can we work together to implement it. Just quickly on the investment part. So we started with this pool of great ideas and we saw a lot in the years and we realized like, okay, those are good ideas, but they are also interesting business cases. So we went from awarding backwards to investing forward. So we now have our own investment fund. We invest in companies from the Index Award pipeline to be able to support great projects. And again, our role is not just as investor, we are a strategic investor that give design thinking method and tools to help companies to succeed and to move forward. This is part of also our education program. So basically, yeah, how to use creativity and tools to use creativity to transform challenges into opportunities. So everything is kind of connected in what we do, and we think we are super aligned with the values and the and all the points that there are in the new European Bauhaus call to action. So of course it's nice to have the same alignment and be like-minded with this type of projects. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Vittoria, and thanks for sharing the index platform also because as we are trying every time we arrange this conversation is to include public and private sector or entities like yours that they work in between, because it's very important to hear what a museum or an architectural center can foster with ideas, with researches, but also how you can invest and co-create. This fact that inclusivity was, for example, always an element of our reflections during the New European Bauhaus dialogues is very important, because when you deal with process, you can't avoid the fact that bridging science to art or bridging experimentation to technology and design and engineering. I also like the fact that, as Kent was saying before, and you also stressed it, that we also need to be to include disciplines that sometimes because they are dark and dirty, we don't want to deal with them, but they are very important and strategic because they are part of the building process and they are part of all the things that is creating the design world. And in this sense, I'd like to pass to Majken Kalhave, Executive Director of Creative Denmark, and here also from her perspective, the position on the new European Bauhaus, also on how you can deal with creativity and policy making. And it's also bizarre, but at the same time, very crucial, the fact that three entities like Creative Denmark, the Danish Architectural Center, and the Index project are all situated in the same building. It also tells a lot how a country like Denmark perceives and acts when it comes to the interconnection of these disciplines. So please, Majken, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Marco, and thank you so much for the invitation. I have been so looking forward to this discussion. And as you just said, I think it's quite remarkable that we actually all sit in a house that represents such a huge ecosystem within both the built environment, but also the public sectors, the private sector companies, and the whole design sector. So that is a great value for all of us to get inspired by each other. I have prepared a short presentation for you that I would like to share.
Yeah, while you share your presentation, I would like to open the chat to our guests. So if they have questions to address, there will be a question time after Majken's presentation and Vanessa final remarks. Please, Vanessa, please, Majken. Sorry.
Thank you so much. No worries. Just a brief introduction to what Creative Denmark is. As said before, we are a newly established creative partnership between public and private partners. We were established in 2019, so still quite new on the block. The aim is to kind of share knowledge, make awareness about the creative strongholds that we have in Denmark, but also to foster relations between Danish stakeholders and international stakeholders and start the conversations about how creativity can be a driving force when we address some of the huge challenges that the world faces today, that being, for example, sustainability, digitalization, the need for quality of life all over the world, etc. And maybe I cannot go forward. Oh, there. As I said, we are set up as a public-private partnership, not for profit, where we on the public side are represented by three different ministries: the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Industry, Business and Financial Affairs, and then we have the Ministry of Culture. And on the private side, we have two major business organizations in Denmark, being the Confederation of Danish Industries and the Danish Chamber of Commerce. And then we also have among our founding fathers the big philanthropical fund, Realdania, who works to promote quality and sustainability within the built environment. So this setup gives us quite a lot of neutrality, but also agility to work with both the public sector and the private sector. So who do we work with when it comes to industries? We represent the major creative industries in Denmark, but we also represent the companies that employ creativity as part of their business. So you can say that our target group is actually both the creative professionals and industries and foster relations between them, but it's also to connect larger international decision makers and stakeholders to Danish organizations, NGOs, public sector, big, huge companies from other sectors that use creativity when they address or approach business services, products, public institution, innovation, etc. So we have a huge target group to work with. As I said, we collaborate international. And why do we do this? We do this to ask questions or make people think about questions like, how can we match societal changes and opportunities with creative solutions? I think Design to Improve Life and the slides Vittoria just shared is an excellent example of this. It's also, how can we match Danish and international stakeholders and form partnerships? Here, I think Bauhaus is an excellent example on where do we need to form partnerships in the future. We do this to collaborate across borders, across geography, across industries as well. But also, how can we actually try to facilitate connections where we can inspire each other to do better, to work stronger across borders, across professions, across industries, to leverage the power of creativity. So this is our goal and aim. Today, I wanted to put my view on how I think creativity is a driving force also in the new European Bauhaus movement, and maybe share 3 different perspectives or values that I think should be core when we are talking about the new European Bauhaus. And then I look forward to discuss how this resonates with you, and maybe get inspired or listen to what you have to say. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. The first thing I want to state is set in the human perspective. How I think the human perspective is core, or have to be core, for all development that we actually do in the world. And in Denmark, creativity is a huge part of our DNA. I guess that's the same goes for Italy, I know. And Marco, you know as well, we just talked about it earlier. But a lot of other nations as well, obviously. But in Denmark, I think the human perspective or the human needs is a basic core in the way that we work with creativity, where this form for creativity can actually, or the whole process about having the human perspective as a core for creative processes allows for a much broader holistic approach when we have to solve problems. The reference I would like to give is the picture that you're looking at. This is a square, a major square in the central Copenhagen. It's called Israel's Plads. And 10 years ago, this area was totally flooded by a 100-year storm that hit Copenhagen and actually flooded the whole central Copenhagen and destroyed thousands of basements, etc., companies, etc. And obviously the municipality had to do something about it. And they decided that instead of just putting up a huge water reservoir in the middle of the city and putting up a fence around it, they decided to create a recreational area in the middle of Copenhagen, where they invited citizens of Copenhagen, designers, architects, industrial people, technical engineers, etc., into a co-creation process where they said, okay, if we are to make something good out of doing climate adaptation in our city, How should we go about it? What do you need? What does it take to create more social cohesion in this city? And this was the result of that process. You see playgrounds, you see a basketball court, you see a skating area, you see sitting spaces, trees, etc. And for me, this is a great example on how this creative process can actually drive innovation, drive sustainability without compromising quality of life for the inhabitants of cities worldwide. And this, for me, is a core value that we need to have with us when we talk about the new European Bauhaus movement. The next thing I want to talk about is what I have chosen to call accessible luxury. And the whole, maybe I should just start by the image that you see here. This is from a newly developed area in Copenhagen called Nordhavn. And it's a parking facility. And if you put apartments on top of this parking facility, it would probably be some of the most expensive apartments in Copenhagen due to where it is and due to the view, as you can probably imagine. But instead, the choice was made to make a workout facility and a playground here with free access for the public. And to me, this is a set of values that is also central in the new European Bauhaus. The idea that quality should be for everyone, that we should create solutions that is for the greater good for the majority of the society, rather than merely the top 1% who can afford it. And that is so important when we talk about a movement that should go across borders and go across industries in Europe. My next perspective, or the next thing I want to highlight, is the need for collaboration. We've talked about it before. Then Vittoria also talked about the co-creation process. And this working together in cross-disciplinary work teams is absolutely central if we are to develop these new solutions. And here, as I showed before, I represent a broad number of industries where I can also see how the gaming industry can contribute in this process. So we have to remember that it's not only architects and designers that can actually be a part of it. We need to reach out to all the curly minds who drives creativity forward and make solutions that are absolutely beautiful and inspiring. We have to make room for ideas and not look at who who says the idea, but actually that the idea can come from anywhere, and that we need to build on each other's ideas rather than make a competition out of it to come first. This is also a central point for me. And it's a defining trait of the creative process if you actually can do this. But obviously this needs trust, and you need to want to collaborate if we are to succeed in this, in these cross-disciplinary involvement or cross-disciplinary teams. And this means also, I think, that we have to stop working in silos, that being either borders, countries, but also silos within the different industries, and stop working in these linear workflows, but instead open up to innovative and involving processes where we are allowed to take a step back if the idea that we have worked with is not the best one in the room. And I think this is crucial for us to actually achieve the impact that we want to with this initiative. So, with all of that in mind, I just wanted to state that creativity is not only about creating beautiful things, it's also about moving mindsets and affecting behavior, and thereby actually drive impact. For example, in solutions and products that will make the world habitable for future generations. For example, in architecture and urban planning that will enable the good life in growing cities without compromising sustainability. And last but not the least, allow for design that is born circular and that can inspire us and make us smile while lasting forever. I think this is key. So those were the three perspectives that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you.
Well, so thank you very much, Majken, for your presentation. And I see a lot of connections with what Kent and Vittoria just shared with us previously, especially when you mentioned the fact of a strong heritage. I mean, there's the heritage of a Baukultur, if we can say it in German, that is strictly connected to what Kent was trying to remember us when we talk about architecture. And also, I would say also to the cultural heritage. I mean, as European, also Kent said at the beginning, my first reaction to the new European Bauhaus was revitalizing my proudness of being a European citizen. It is important. I mean, Triennale is one of the official partners of the new European Bauhaus, and among them there's Europa Nostra, and with them we are also dealing that we should also include the cultural heritage, in the sense that strong heritage touches the past or the previous, and so it's not just something happened long time ago, but something that was already achieved or stressed or researched before the launch of this platform. I also want to, when you talked about collaborations and that we need to include other figures, you talked about gaming, and one of the first designers that was guest of the new European Bauhaus conversation was a game designer from Germany. So it is important also for us to include the unexpected, because from the unexpected can come important positions or advices or ideas. But before I continue for a few minutes, our conversation, I'd like to give, because we are getting close to our 1 hour chat, I would love to hear from Vanessa, so from the representative of the Danish Embassy in Rome, her position, comment on what she heard during this past 50 minutes.
Thank you, Marco. I will try and be as brief as I can so we can give space to the questions. Well, first of all, I would like to thank all the speakers today, because I think the conversation was very inspirational, full of inputs. And personally, I think the launch of the new European Bauhaus initiative is definitely a change of pace. I mean, as Kent was saying, is very much important, I think, that Europe, of course, we all know we have a past. It's very important that we can look ahead and work together to find the solutions. And I think that the idea of responding to the most urgent needs of our society, of our world more in general, through design is quite a revolutionary idea. It was like a sort of fil rouge, I think, through all the conversations we've had, the speeches we've had today. The importance of design to improve life, as Vittoria was saying, but also the central role that we have as part of this conversation, and how the cooperation between the different countries can actually lead to alternative solutions that so far has not maybe come up, because working all together can definitely help us have a diverse change of perspective. Having been working, I think, for the Danish Embassy for the past couple of years, I would say that definitely both design, sustainability, and the co-creation, the inclusivity that we're mentioning, all of them before, are very much embedded in Denmark's DNA, as Majken was saying. I've managed to, at some point, experience it firsthand, how it really is the core of the Danish way of life. And probably is, I've recently read that probably is the size of the country that has pushed people to work on creativity, to really make creativity the core of their life, you know, finding alternative solutions, to go out and work with others, to find amazing and revolutionary solutions to worldwide problems. And especially, I think, in Kent's conversation, all the focus on the renovation, the focus on energy efficiency, the alternative sources of energy, it's very much embedded in Denmark's life. And I think that there's really plenty of opportunities for collaboration between our two countries, but at the European level in general. And as an embassy, we are, of course, promoting the Denmark as one of the most innovative countries in the world, and the most creative ones. And I'm working closely with both Kent and Majken, and hopefully Vittoria in the future as well, to really, you know, and I think enhance the collaboration between our two countries. And we really look forward to all the future activities we have together.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. We have 2 minutes left, and I would love to hear from Majken, Vittoria, and then concluding with Kent, like a 30-second statement on what we can do in our from our perspective to enable the citizens that New European Bauhaus is not another chair, it's not another design week, it's not another design platform. It is also in this design phase an occasion to remember that with design and architecture, you can play your role as a citizen, and you can use your voice to use cultural institutions and these sort of platforms also to raise issues that they touch the everyday life. So I would like to hear from Majken and then to Vittoria and Kent a statement before saying goodbye and good evening to all of you.
Thank you so much. I think for me, the most important is that we have a process where we actually co-create. And I think the thing about incorporating different industries, different public entities, different private companies in this process, as well as the common citizens of the cities, are crucial if we are to make a new approach in this European Bauhaus, and to build, as we talked about earlier, build on the existing cultural differences, cultural ideas that we have, and not just start over, but actually accelerate from ground zero and up, and not just stay at a new level. So that would be my.
Thank you, Majken. Vittoria.
Yeah, I think from all the conversation, what we all agree is that maybe it's not the time anymore to have individual goals, but it's the time to have a common and shared plan. And I think I also would like to stress the fact that, as we all mentioned, like the diversity is something that is very crucial, and it's not just diversity of gender or ethnicity, diversity of backgrounds and disciplines. So I think that's are the two main things that are important to highlight from my perspective.
Thank you, Vittoria. And now to Kent.
Well, exactly 100 years ago, the French architect Le Corbusier was sitting down and writing his book Towards a New Architecture. And as you probably all know, it ends up saying architecture or revolution. Revolution can be avoided. And I would just like to end up by saying that we didn't get architecture, we got a World War II. And then we got architecture in all the European countries. Every country got their own housing ministry. And now we actually have a building stock that creates generally a dignified life for the Europeans. But I think we are there now where it's about architecture or revolution 2, version 2, in the sense that if we do not manage to create that for the next 20, 30 years, we would see a more unrestful and unstable Europe. So I think he's almost right 100 years after again. So I think we have a big task, and I think it is so promising that now the politicians really put a value into the aesthetic qualities of life in relation to how we live.
Thank you very much for these words, to you, Kent, to Vittoria, to Majken and Vanessa. And our next appointment will be in April 13th, when we are going to gather and raise all the good proposals, critiques, and statements of the different countries to the politician. We will hold a conversation with a high-level roundtable of the European Commission, with Francesca Bria, with the mayor of Milano, Giuseppe Sala, with the president of Triennale, Stefano Boeri, and many other actors of the scene, not only here in Milan and Italy, but in Europe, in order, like Xavier Troussard, for example, like the European Commissioner Maria Gabriel. So we are ready to bring these issues directly on the table, and because we want, as we are used to say, to design the table where we want to sit around and propose our ideas to the European Commission. So thank you very much. Goodbye and good evening.